Another kind of problem that requires a radian measure is gearing systems. Now, I imagine I have two gears, two wheels that are geared together, and as gear number one rotates, then gear number two also rotates because the teeth, they mesh together and engage. This is the basis behind power transfer and working in mechanical advantage when you're working with all sorts of power systems. And so this is a very, very basic, very important notion. Now, before I run through this, I want to just again, because I give it on the previous video, but I want to do another run through converting from revolutions to radians. Let's make sure we have that down. So I'm going to do a couple little examples here. Before we go to the gearing systems, I'm going to interrupt this and just do a quick little brush through converting from revolutions to radians, and then convert from radians to revolutions. If you're given revolutions, you'll be able to find radians. If you're given radians, you should be able to find revolutions. Because very often problems of this type are going to be given in revolutions rather than some specific angle. So this is converting between revolutions and radians. So the question is, given, let's say 6.1 revolutions, how many radians is that? It doesn't matter the size of the circle. This what I'm doing here has nothing to do with the sizes of the circle. This is in any circle. 6.1 revolutions is equal to how many radians? Well, we might as well forget the question mark. We might as well go ahead and use our symbol we're using. So 6.1 revolutions is equal to how many radians? And so we set up the proportion the same way. One revolution is 2 pi radians. 6.1 revolutions is don't know radians. That's a proportion, cross multiply, set them equal, and solve. And so when you cross multiply, the nice thing here is this is 1. Cross multiply here, this is theta. So really the net effect is you multiply each revolution by 2 pi. You don't need to memorize that. Just set the proportion up, cross multiply, set them equal, and solve. Theta is 2 pi times 6.1. If you just want to know, take the number of revolutions times 2 pi, that'll get you there just as quickly. So my value is 2 times pi times 6.1, and my value is 38.327, yada, yada, yada. And this is, just to emphasize, this is in radians. Theta is now measured in radians. And so if you were going to, we will eventually be using these numbers in our S equals R theta formula. Well, we have our value. All right? Now, let's do it the other way around. Suppose we're given 29.33 radians. The question is, that's equal to how many revolutions? Well, we start the same way. 1 is to 2 pi. 1 revolution is 2 pi. But now we don't know the revolutions, but we do know 29.33. That's why you don't need to memorize when do you multiply, when do you divide. I don't know, I don't care. Set up the proportion, cross multiply, it'll always work. Set up the proportion, cross multiply. So now I get 2 pi times x is equal to 29.33. Divide both sides by 2 pi. And what am I going to get? Now, I want to do this specifically because of this reason. I'm going to do this wrong, and you're going to see. It's hard to see, I know, but I'm going to say what I'm doing. I'm going to put 29.33. If I do divide by 2 times pi, if I do 29.33 divide by 2 times pi, I get the wrong result. I get the wrong result because the order of operations are screwed up. The order of operations are messed up. And so this gives me something like 46.07. That's not the correct result. Whenever you have multiple factors in this denominator, in fact, anytime this denominator is anything other than a single number, anytime this is other than a single number, you should put parenthesis around it. If you don't know how to use parenthesis on your calculator, you need to learn. And so what you can do now is now just type this in as it's given, and it's going to be fine. 29.33 divide by, open parenthesis, 2 times pi, close parenthesis. Now everything's going to be fine. Instead of that 43 or whatever it was a while ago, we end up getting 4.668 and so on. So set up this proportion, changing from revolutions to radians or changing from radians to revolutions. Remember, when you divide by 2 pi, you must divide with parentheses. All right? So let's call that a video. So you can practice that with a few items to make sure you have a feel for that. And now the next video we'll come back and we'll address these problems with the gearing systems.